We are heating up the stove as we welcome in Sal Licata and John Jastremski. Sal, let's start with you. All offseason, we've heard the Mets want Pete back, but on their terms. Now that it appears a legitimate offer from another team is out there, should the Mets change their terms?
No, I'm not doing it anymore. I've had it with this whole thing, honestly, and I've fluctuated with it because I wanted Pete back initially. Then he had a bad year, but then he had the postseason heroics, and obviously they need another bat in that lineup behind Juan Soto. But I do think the Mets have offered him more than fair market value. I'm not buying the Blue Jays offer is going to be better. They could be at the 10-yard line, the 2-yard line. I don't care. I don't believe it's going to be better than the 3-year deal that the Mets offered him, JJ. So I'm not sure what Pete and Boris want or what they're looking for the Mets to do, but the market is what it is, and I think their offer is more than fair.
So I would up the ante if I were the New York Mets, because this is somebody that matters to my franchise, and I think he could really help them in a big way in 2025. But to your point, there's not a whole lot of interest out there. And I think the problem is Pete is thinking of the contract that he got a year and a half ago, and he can't let go what the Mets are offering him. So it's all well and good for somebody like me on the outside to come in and say, yeah, I'd offer Pete a little bit more. I'd try to get this done. Sal, Eamon, I don't think it's going to matter at this point. I think Pete Alonso had 6 years, $150 million staring him in the face. He didn't take it. He bet on himself. He lost. He went to free agency. He hired Scott Boras. He has not had the interest. I don't know if the Mets giving him $5 more million a year is going to be a difference in him staying. I feel like this relationship has kind of run its course.
Yeah, and 3 years for, maybe $90 million or so. We don't know the exact details of it. I do think it was more than just that 3 for $70. There were multiple reports months ago saying 3 for $90. Like, I don't know what more Pete wants. Look at what Christian Walker got. Look at what the Mets have offered Pete per year for 3 years. I mean, are we talking opt-outs? Are we talking deferrals? He's not getting that 160, to your point. He hasn't earned it. End of story. It's not about his rookie year. He's had 2 seasons to do it. He's had 2 different contract offers. He's turned them down, and he hasn't been great in those 2 seasons. What does he want?
Well, look, he wants what Brandon Nimmo got, and he's not getting it. I mean, market value and a different GM.
And he could
have had it, no doubt. But, JJ, as you examine the options internally to fill a potential Alonso void, is it fair to question if the Mets have let this drag on too long, if they, in their heart of hearts, don't want him anyway?
So if they don't want him, I think they are very comfortable with the internal options they're going to have from a pivot standpoint. And I think as far as a pivot is concerned, we could talk about Mark Vientos doing workman-like third base performance defensively. Mark Vientos is not a good defensive third baseman. Let's call it like it is. His future, I think, is going to be at first base. I think David Stearns is envisioning making that sort of switch. So, therefore, he's comfortable with the idea of finding the next Mark Vientos. Last year, Mark Vientos was not a major topic of conversation of a guy who could go and impact the Mets and change the fortunes of their team. He did. Now, are they going to have the same luck with a Mauricio or with an Acuna? I'm not so sure. It's asking a lot, but I think that's the plan, Sal. So from external options, I don't think Stearns is really interested.
I do think the Mets want him back. I don't think this is here's an offer that we know you're going to refuse. I do believe the Mets want him back. They just aren't going to overpay significantly for him, which maybe takes them out of the running for Vlad Guerrero Jr. Or also they think, okay, you don't want this money? Fine, we'll go in a different direction and give Mauricio a look or give Beatty a look. And by the way, if they don't get it done, then go get a bat at the trade deadline. There are other ways to do it. It's not as sexy going into the season. It's going to sting a little bit for Met fans. I know that, losing Pete Alonso, but they will figure it out. I trust Cohen and Stearns to replace Pete Alonso.
I tell you, if they want him back, they're having an interesting way of showing it for sure.